Join your host, Maddie Roche, as she brings you into a community of fee-only financial advisors who are successfully building profitable businesses that serve the next generation of clients. Learn from innovative advisors whose unique stories will inspire you to dream big and take action on your goals. Are you ready to live your best life and help your clients live theirs? Then you're in the right place.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm Maddie Roche, your host. I'm excited to have XYPN member Pierre-Emmanual Jovue, owner of InsuraWealth, a fee-only firm out of Tampa, Florida, on the show with me today. Pierre started his firm in 2016 and today serves over 85 clients, most of whom are young professionals. Pierre talks about how and why he niched his client base to focus on a specific employer and explains how a strong niche, use of LinkedIn and referrals has allowed him to grow his firm rapidly. Pierre also talks about what it's like to serve these clients on his own and why efficiency and intentionality about his time is so important. We also dive into the app that Pierre recently created to help his clients with cash flow, and we discuss how he plans to build out that business in efforts to better serve the masses. We discuss his pricing structure and what he would say to advisors who challenge his low fees. Pierre doesn't hesitate to discuss the things that have been challenging, like compliance, working alone, and balancing essentially two businesses. But as he says, he loves his work so much, it doesn't even feel like work. If you're interested in what it's like to start a business, then create an app while continuing to serve a large client base, then this show is for you. Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. You can find any of the resources we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/283. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Pierre-Emmanuel. Welcome, Pierre, to XYPN Radio. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to dive in. And before we kind of get into the crux of this conversation, I'd love just for you to give a little bit of perspective about who you are and the business that you run.
Okay. So I am a certified financial planner. I've been in the business since 2012. Transitioned really from the brokerage and insurance side. In 2016 is when I launched my fee-only firm here in Tampa. And just really for the last 4 years, been focused on growing it. And it's been quite a journey.
Awesome. Could you give the listeners a little perspective on how many clients you serve and the type of client that you work with?
Okay. Yeah. So I'm probably close to a little over 85 clients as of right now. The majority of my clients, 98% of them are under 35.
Wow.
So rather young demographics. Typically I target individuals that have just graduated and they're probably in their first 2 years of their career and just trying to get started.
Okay. And so we are always wondering, what was it that made you want to be a financial planner and get into this space, not just run your own business?
Right. So I've had quite a different shift, I guess. So I went to University of Georgia, graduated with a bachelor's in landscape architecture. So completely different field. When I graduated, it was 2009. So it was just at the end of the kind of the recession. So it was rather difficult to find a job in that field. Ended up moving to Miami. And from there, where I ended up meeting my wife, my father-in-law had been in the business for, at that point, probably 30 years in financial planning. And he kind of was looking for a successor, someone to help him with a business. And I just kind of said, okay, why not? Let's try it out. I need to do something. So let's do this.
Wow. And so was it at that point that you decided to just work full time with him, or did you just enroll in a CFP curriculum?
So I started mostly on the insurance side. So it was really passing kind of like my 215s. And then obviously the brokerage, you needed your Series 6. So passed those exams. And then as soon as I got those credentials, it was kind of hit the ground running.
So tell us a little bit about kind of your first few years in the space and how that was transitioning from kind of what you were doing beforehand into really a new world. I know so many of us come in as career changers, even as young folks. What was that like to enter into the industry?
It was different. So, kind of the motto was I went from designing landscape plans to designing financial plans. So instead of picking out which shrub to use, we were kind of picking out what insurance products or brokerage investments, et cetera. So the transition was probably wasn't the easiest. I had to kind of, essentially start from scratch, making that complete career change, learning a whole new dynamic. I always had a passion with numbers. So that aspect of the equation was somewhat came naturally. In terms of my growth, the first couple of years were kind of hard because I started with New England Financial. And at the time, the training was just kind of was rather new. So I didn't really have that great of a training process. Within a year of being with my father-in-law at New England Financial, they got bought out. We transitioned over to MetLife. Within 2 years of being with MetLife, we were then sold off to Mass Mutual. So my first 4 years were kind of hectic, 3 different bosses, 3 different trainers, 3 different types of, models, because each were kind of independent of what they were trying to target in terms of market. So the adjustments were a little hard, but during that entire process, I also studied for the CFP, built a small client relationship, learned under my father-in-law a great deal. He, being in the business since like 1980s, I think, even before that as a CFP, like one of the early ones down in South Florida. And so I got to work on some very interesting cases. And from that, really, when after that transition to Mass Mutual, my wife had an opportunity to move to Tampa and kind of accept a new job. And so we just said, all right, if we're doing this and taking this, I might as well just jump ship and just kind of start my own firm and establish, the guidelines and principles that I wanted to do. And so full support of my father-in-law, he said, go for it, do it. And so we did.
Wow. Now, did you start the firm with your father-in-law?
No. He gave me his blessings. I was a little afraid to say, hey, I'm leaving you, leaving you hanging here. But no, he was very supportive of the process. And I kind of owe him a great deal.
Wow. So I'm always interested in how folks find out about the fee-only space, especially as they start in the insurance space. Were you aware of the difference between fee-only and not fee-only during those first 4 years?
No, zero.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't until I considered starting my own firm, really, 2016, that I started to dive into it and learn a little bit more of the space and how fees are structured. And at that time, I think I remember LearnVest was a rather interesting model that I liked. The small monthly fee and being able to provide planning to the masses was something that I always gravitated towards, because I always thought that there's a benefit to, instead of selling something, the ability to provide a service always attracted me more.
Wow. I love that to help serve the masses. And as I think about your client numbers, I can't help but think you're on your way to doing that. And then part of what we'll talk about later is really how you are reaching those masses. But tell me about you recently built an app to help you scale. 85 clients is a lot. And a lot of folks in that stage are kind of considered in the scaling phase. They're looking how to scale their firm. There's only one of you. And to the best of my knowledge, it is only you at the firm, right?
Correct. Just me.
So how do you go about servicing 85 clients on your own?
So you've got to automate. You have to have a process in place, and you just have to stick with that process and make it as repeatable as possible. So, going back to the app, my biggest challenge, which is kind of why the idea of building an app kind of arose, was the problem with my younger demographics, was the ability to connect with them in terms of cash flow, right? So for someone just starting out, cash flow is really kind of the centerpiece of financial planning, right? My saying is that it's the heartbeat of financial planning. It's 90%, right? And if you can get the cash flow piece established correctly, then all these other strategies that you want to implement usually kind of fall into place a lot easier. And so the struggle was that, you'd sit there and you do a nice complicated budget with them, right? And you'd have all these spending categories, you're dining out, shopping, etc. And then you'd present it to them and they kind of look at you, white faced, and they're trying to sit there and figure out, okay, that sounds good. And, first weekend of the month, Friday night, they go out to dinner. Saturday, they're out partying with friends, going out to dinner again. And Sunday, you get the text late at night, hey, I think I already blew through my dining out budget. So why don't we just kick this can and let's start again next month. And so after enough, kicking that can and down the road, I finally was trying to figure out a way, how can I connect with them that, for them to understand it? How can I create a metric that's a lot more relatable? And so that's kind of how the idea of the app came from. And so from that, created this internal kind of like a secret sauce. And after testing it out with my clients, they ended up loving it and they were using it, engaging with it. And then all of a sudden I realized that, hey, this is working. So let's see if we can expand this to the masses and help more people.
Wow. Not everyone goes from landscape architecture to financial planner to developer, but Pierre, you do. A lot of advisors struggle with cash flow with their clients because that's the nature of working with young people. What was your experience using cash flow tools before you went out and built your own app? Did you kind of go through the whole gamut of trying them out?
Yeah. So obviously there's products out there that users can use on their own, kind of like a mint.com where it just, you categorize, you pull in all your accounts, categorizes the transactions. Same thing with, on the financial advisor side, you've got Right Capital, Money Guide Pro, et cetera. And they all have the cash flow component. The problem is it's not an emphasis. And second, it's kind of, I still believe it's kind of like the old school way of doing it, which is a rather reactive way of looking towards cash flow management, right? So they give you all the categories, they kind of auto-populate where these transactions are going to go into. And the problem is as a user, you're looking at this and you're like, okay, great, I'm aware of what I'm doing, but it doesn't give any sort of direction to what needs to be done, right? Because at the end of the day, you're just looking at data, and then you've got to find a way to connect that data to that client or user to understand what steps they need to take. And so what's neat about what we've created is that we've kind of boiled down to a simple metric, which at the end of the day, people just want answers to some rather basic questions, right? Which is question number one, how much can I spend, right? How much do I really need to save? And how much should I be investing? And so what we've done is we take in the data, we pull it in, and then the algorithm compiles it, and then it gives them a simple daily spend number. So our users and clients, all they have to do is, it doesn't matter. We throw away all the categories, we throw all that stuff away, and we just give them a simple value. So they wake up every day and they know they've got, $60 to spend. And then we encourage them to spend, because that is allocated towards spending and it is for them to spend however they want. And so what's neat is obviously, hey, if you want avocado toast for breakfast and it's going to cost you $20, well, now you've got $40 for the rest of the day. And so just thinking about money just made it a lot easier for them to know what their limits were on a per day basis. And then naturally what ended up happening was they obviously stayed below their daily spend because they knew what it was easier to track, but then they started to hit their saving and invest targets every month. And then obviously as the algorithm starts to expand, then it starts to, the goals start to change and manipulate, and they start to obviously put an emphasis towards saving, investing, et cetera.
What kind of conversations are you having around using this app with your clients? And that question comes from daily spend is awesome. I get that. And I even know my own number in my head, but if I've got to buy shoes, that kind of takes, the whole week's budget away. So do you plan, or do you talk to your clients about what are the big purchases you're going to have to make so that we take that away from the daily spend?
Correct. So that then brings in another component, which is saving for large purchases, right? So something that I've emphasized with my clients from the get-go is always to have some sort of cash reserve on hand, right? And not only a cash reserve, right, which is the kind of typical emergency fund, but I lump cash reserve as emergency fund plus large purchases. And so what we're constantly doing is always putting money into savings, and the overages that are above the user's emergency fund is what they can use towards large purchases that come out here and there. But ideally, what we try to do is always emphasize, look, if there's a large purchase that you want, you need to obviously save for it up front. Now, something that happens kind of the one-off situations, like you said, right? I'm going to buy a new pair of shoes, or I've got to repair my car and it's going to be $500. Well, for some individuals, what's going to end up happening is, yes, it's going to hit their daily spend. And then they'll just need to adjust or do their best that they can to adjust for the rest of the week. So what we typically see is that most people during Monday through Thursday, they do less of their spending during those 4 days, right? So typically you should end up having a budget that rolls over. And then as you get to the weekend, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you typically have a little bit more money to spend and use through. But the idea is that you have your spending bucket for the month and you try to stay within those guidelines.
So how does this impact the actual experience of your client relationship? Does that reduce the amount of time you're working with them, or how do you use it?
Yeah, so it's increased engagement, and it's reduced my headaches. And the reason it's done that is, my conversation with my clients are no longer, other than the initial setup, getting them onboarded and the occasional questions about it. I'm not sitting here dealing with looking at their budgets on a daily basis, like what they're doing. Like that's eliminated at this point. Now I'm measuring and focusing on the relationship and making sure that they're meeting those larger goals, right? Making sure that adequate savings, building their investments, looking at insurance needs, et cetera. And so for a user, what's been really nice is that they obviously have access to the app, which makes it a lot easier to engage. But 2, we give them a daily reminder. So every day they know, hey, this is where you're at for the month. This is what you're averaging. You're below, above, on track, off track, et cetera. And so they know every day as they're going through the month where they stand. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just understanding where you are right now through the course of the month.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to pretend I'm a developer here. Is this a desktop app, or is this an app on your phone? And that's as far as my developer conversation goes. How do your clients use the app?
So as of right now, it is web-based. So we use it on the desktop, on a computer. As long as you have access to the internet, you can easily access it. There is an advisor component, which is really nice. So me as a financial advisor, I can now connect with all my clients. I can see their stats, see which ones are off track, on track, and then obviously nudge the ones that are off. So it's helped again, back to the time, like now I know who to target, who I need to put a little bit more effort to steer them right. For users, right now, like I said, just web-based, but we are coming out with a native mobile app that you'll be able to find on the Google and Apple app stores sometime in November.
Wow. I'm interested in kind of your expectation for how this will help you grow your firm. How many clients do you think you can serve at this rate using a tool like this?
Ideally, I'd like to get to about 150, so double where I'm currently at. And then I think at that point, it becomes imperative that I hire to help manage kind of the day-to-day tasks, the admin stuff. But yeah, ideally, my time has been, I'm running 2 firms essentially at this point, right? The building of the app, the startup, plus the firm. So managing time is very important, and having to segment that during the day is critical.
Yeah. How are you segmenting it right now? Do you have a team of developers working behind the scenes to help you with that app?
Yeah, correct. So on the startup side, we're up to, we've got 1 full-time developer, we've got 2 part-time developers, and 1 intern. So we're up to like 4 or 5 employees at this point on that firm. I've got more there than I do in the actual financial firm.
Wow. Do you think an app like this is something that would replace the advisor relationship, or just complement it?
Yeah, not at all. So our goal is really to reach the masses, give them a better understanding of their cash flow, help them build that strong foundation. But ideally, we want to be the bridge, right? So we want to find a way to connect those users to financial advisors. So at the end of the day, there is a component within the app that those users that aren't connected to an advisor or not working with an advisor will have the ability to reach out to advisors that are on the platform. And so then it becomes kind of a lead generator for financial advisors to use to help grow their business. And then secondly, for the user, obviously, then it allows them to reach out to a professional and get that extra advice, right? Like we're not here to tell them how to invest their portfolio. All we're telling them is, hey, based on your cash flow, like you need to be putting $600 a month. Okay. And then they should meet with an advisor to decide where that money should go. Same thing with savings, and then in reality, right, there's other components that you need to talk with someone like a CPA, tax strategies, insurance strategies. So advisors are definitely a necessary component for this. And
will you charge for the app?
Yeah. So what we're going to do is on the user side. So someone who's not connected to an advisor, we're looking at about $1.99 a month to use it. For an advisor, it's going to be a tiered model. So we're going to start off at $39 a month for the first 100 clients that they work with or connected within the platform. And then the benefit for users is should they connect with an advisor, the advisor and the user will handle their agreements offline, essentially. So whatever the advisor charges, if they agree to pay for that, they handle that offline. When the connection is made within the app, the monthly fee for the user drops. So for them, that $2 fee goes away.
Pierre, I'm interested in how you manage your day because you just said it, you're running two companies. And that's not a joke. Most advisors with 85 clients in one company would say they're overwhelmed. How do you structure your week and what's your approach to time management?
So I have a fairly, I think the key to any time management is just creating a routine. So something that I've just recently established is really just kind of waking up a little bit early in the morning, implemented what I call the miracle morning routine. It's a process that starts at 5:00. That's where I spend pretty much the first hour and a half of my day just working on myself, right? So my health, meditation, some visualization, affirmations, exercise, and then personal development in terms of reading. Then about 6:30, the kids wake up. And so from 6:30 to about 8 a.m., mom and dad are taking care of the kids, getting them ready for school, and then off to, and then I come back home and pretty much start the grind. So the day is, first priority is obviously my clients. So I time block a lot of what I do during the day, but I also pre-plan before I go to bed. I schedule out what I'm going to do the following day. And actually, there's a really cool app that I use. It's called Sunsama. It's about $20 a day. You can connect it to however many calendars you have. So for me, what's really great is like it's a task management tool. I have both companies listed, both calendars listed, and then each calendar invite, I can create a task. And so then I know throughout the day what I need to do on the next task, et cetera. So the idea is that if you can pre-plan your day, you actually more than likely are losing less time trying to figure out, all right, what should my next task be? And at the same time, it's okay. I tell my clients, look, if we don't have something scheduled on the books as far as like emergency meetings, if it's you're heading to the hospital, we have to talk right now, then I'll obviously take the call. But most financial situations I would consider non-emergency. And so usually I always tell them, look, let's schedule a call. And then that way everything's planned out. We have the time carved out that's necessary for that conversation.
Wow.
And then sometimes in there is lunch and dinner and feeding the kids at night.
Being a parent and a spouse and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
You use a lot of apps. I'm interested to hear more about kind of what behind the scenes you're using in terms of tools to run your practice. Any secret tricks you've got outside of the apps you've created and are relying on already?
Yeah, so obviously my personal app, Parkbo, I use that for my day-to-day management of clients. In terms of CRM, I use HubSpot, just a free, easy to integrate with a lot of things. I use Sunsama for my kind of like personal tasks. And then I use Hugo, which is one that I really love, syncs with your calendar, but then it also can track all your notes. And then from that, I can then push those notes to HubSpot, and then I've got everything listed in one area. And then I've got Advice Pay for the planning fee. I still use Right Capital to help with kind of the most, the more in-depth strategies that are needed. And then what's the last one? And then as far as custodians, I have a Betterment partnership and a TD Ameritrade partnership.
Wow. How have you been marketing yourself, Pierre? You've only been running the firm for a couple years, and I'm interested, how did you get up to 85 so quickly?
So creating you've got to have a target market. I think that was the key shift that I did. At first, I kind of started out and it was just like, look, it was a feast for famine, right? I'll take anybody I can get. And then I kind of shifted that to, look, I just need to be more personalized. I need to have a more direct target focus of who I'm going to deal with. And so what I ended up doing was really, I think this process has started to evolve a little bit more, but ideally what I did is I targeted one company. I found one employee, and then from there, I tried to get as many referrals as I could within that company. And so what really scaled very quickly was I used LinkedIn as my kind of like main source of marketing in 2017, 2018. And all I did was just connect with individuals that worked at that company. I knew the employee benefits in and out. I knew exactly what their pain points were. I knew all the different types of positions the company has, what the salary structure were. And so what ended up happening, and what I realized very quickly, which is very interesting, is that people are more likely to refer their coworker than I think they are to refer their family members. And so it kind of created this domino effect where I was just getting the business just really grew from this one company, one employee just, hey, referring me another employee, and so forth and so forth. And what makes it neat is that, obviously you also have to understand the tools you're using to market. So this company is obviously very heavy in LinkedIn, and it's kind of like their source. Their employees are on there all day recruiting. And so it made it a lot easier because it made it a lot easier to reach them within that platform. And I knew that they would answer or they wouldn't answer. I got an answer, yes or no, but at least I knew that they got the message. But if you're trying to find like a small business owner or a doctor, LinkedIn may not be that platform, right? They're too busy in the hospital or they're running their firms. So I think what you have to be careful too is not only figure out what your target market is, but then also figure out what the platform you're going to use and stick to just that type of marketing platform and make sure you just target them within it.
Wow. Go back to when you identified that company. Did you identify it by chance or yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So to make this story short, my wife works for this company. So it made it a lot easier to kind of like target, because that's how I knew all the information from the get-go. But from that, what's been really interesting is that obviously it's a young company. So the employees were rather young. They kind of hire out of college. So it kind of fit my model. It's kind of like a neat niche. But what's nice is obviously there's a lot of churn when you're young, right? Your first 2 years right out of school, you're more than likely to leave and go somewhere else. And so from that, it's obviously expanded my network. And then the same thing happened. I started to learn more about the employee benefits, what they had to offer. And then from that, they started referring me their new coworkers. I still don't think I've gotten a referral for a family member, maybe one, but it's all coworkers.
Now, are you marketing yourself as being an expert in this company and you're producing content around it? Or is it just that you tend to work with people at this company?
Yeah, so I produced, that's something I need to work on, but I don't have a very good web presence. Didn't do any extra marketing in terms of, content. I studied the material, and then I'm kind of the guy that just, I'll call, email, or reach out and just go directly to the person. And if you tell me no, great, I'll move on and go to the next one. Try not to get too bogged down, because at the end of the day, you got to get yourself in front of that person and have that conversation to really trigger whether or not there's an interest.
Got it. You sound so intentional with everything that you've done. I'm interested in your fee structure and your intentions behind that. Maybe it goes back to wanting to serve the masses, but could you talk a bit about how you've structured your fees to meet the needs of this niche?
Right. So my fee structure would be considered probably very low for most. It's a flat fee. It's the same for everyone. Doesn't matter where you start at, how much you have. So it's a monthly fee, $50 a month. It's kind of like I really kind of copied LearnVest's model in terms of a low fee structure. Ideally, what I realize is that one, if I'm working hyper-focused with this demographics, the needs of those individuals to start aren't as exuberant as someone who's probably later on or who's got more complexities, right? I mean, when you're starting your career, you're really just focused on a couple things, right? Which is making ends meet and then trying to build that solid foundation. So time, as far as structuring my time versus the amount I'm paying, obviously the first 3 months, I'm definitely negative in terms of that client relationship. But the idea is that as I build that relationship, I build that trust, I look at the long-term value of that client, which is ideally, one, they're going to build their investments with me. Anytime they move companies, there's the potential for 401k to an IRA rollover. So I look at the long-term value, which as they're getting older, I will grow older with them, and I'll be able to handle those complexities as time goes on.
Fascinating. So there's no upfront fee needed.
No upfront fee needed. Yep.
Wow. So, that I feel like, just as a consumer, as I tell my friends about it, the upfront fee tends to be kind of that hard thing for young folks to stomach. Not everyone has $1,500 to give out, but if you're able to kind of think about it, what is the expectation of the length of time for the relationships? I hear that, that you want to kind of see the long-term value of it. How long do you expect to work with your clients?
So I've probably acquired a little over like 94 clients, I think, over the course of the last 4 years. I've had 10 move on. So I'm not experiencing any high churn whatsoever. Most of my clients who have been with me for, 4 years, 3 years, depending on when they signed up. So again, it's making that focus on the relationship, and I'm very upfront with them in the initial, and I tell them, look, this is a commitment. It's a two-way street. I expect you to engage. I expect you to reach out when there's something, as I will reach out to you if something comes up. And so, I kind of weed out. I've had a couple of people where I've noticed that, look, I know they were in it for that kind of like a quick month of working and then, bailing, which is a risk. But I'm very upfront that, look, I'm looking for the long-term relationship here. I'm not looking to bail on you within 3 months. This is why the fee is structured this way. It's a month-to-month basis. And I want to be here for the rest of the time.
Wow. With 85 clients, how do you structure your client meetings? Are you doing it on an ongoing basis as needed, or do you kind of front load those conversations?
So it is definitely front loaded kind of the first 3 months. It's again, goes back to that repeatable process for everyone. Right. So, not to give the secret sauce away, but it's pretty much the first 3 weeks are 1 hour meetings once a week. And then they go to every other week, 1 hour meetings. And ideally we break everything down into easable, digestible parts, right? So instead of overwhelming the client with, a 100-page financial plan, I actually don't create those whatsoever. We work on a task-based approach. So what we do is, like, the first week is really building the cash flow foundation. Then week 2 is looking at savings. Week 3 is, all right, your investments and, everything related to that, the risk profile, the questionnaires, looking at the investments. And then we start to space things out and look more at the employee benefits, insurance, then tax component, and making those connections to other professionals, right? Because I'm not going to handle taxes for them, making those connections needed. And then the last topic that no one ever wants to talk about is obviously the estate portion, which, even though they're young, they still need to have a small understanding of what's involved around that. And so making those connections there. And then once that process is done, it is really, I try the first 6 months. I then do a follow-up once a month with them just to make sure that they're staying on track. And obviously, if I get notified that they've fallen off track, obviously I know immediately, so I can reach out a lot quicker. And then, so it goes to monthly from 3 to 6 months, and then 6 month on, then it's more quarterly. And again, they can ping anytime they need, or if I see anything go off, get a little wacky, I can always initiate that conversation.
Wow. I know some of our listeners will say that you're undercharging. Talk to us a little bit about that and how you would respond.
Yeah, I know I am undercharging, but I look at it as trying to build, I'm really there to help people and build that solid foundation so that they can achieve their financial dreams. And to me, that's obviously going to be more important as far as the revenue, but I also look at it in the long term, right? So yes, maybe my monthly reoccurring revenue isn't as high, and it could be much higher. But what I'm looking at is also building the investments, right? And so I do get a percentage of the investments as time goes on. And so building the trust with the client leads to the assets under management. And so, within 10 years from now, that should be a rather large part that subsidizes essentially the business, whether or not the $50 fee comes in.
Totally. And you may be full time with the app at that point.
Yeah, right. That's going to be an interesting dilemma when that happens.
Yes. How has it been to transition to being the owner of your own firm? I feel like that it suits you so well, given your drive and initiative. But the context switch of all of a sudden being out on your own, what was that like?
It's different, especially when I started out, I was I had to go to the office every day. So you worked in an office environment, and having the dynamic of working from home, which was a completely new animal to me in 2016, which now everyone is trending towards anyways. So yeah, being on track. I think if you're someone that's determined and can structure your day, I think the transition is a non-issue. And now there's, multiple tools that are accessible. I was, probably my one thing I was hesitant about was not only, obviously I'm creating this business and having to learn the compliance aspect of things, because that's a whole legal different animal. But it was the kind of like the fact that I was going more towards a virtual online. I rarely meet clients in person because they're spread out across the country. And so I was worried about that dynamic, whether or not they'd be willing to meet virtually, have this conversation, whether it's, phone call, email, text, and then the occasional FaceTime or Zoom, which, for this younger generation is a non-issue. I have clients that are all the way out west in Seattle, LA, and I'm here in Tampa.
Wow. So when COVID hit, did you see any big change either to the number of clients coming in or to the needs of your clients?
So COVID was a rather interesting shift. from two fronts. It wasn't really mostly my clients. It was mostly kind of like a personal. So my wife went from working at an office to working from home. So having to deal with the kids at home, the wife at home, that was kind of created a new dynamic from the work at home. I was used to that. Just wasn't used to distractions in the background. Then in terms of the actual clients, obviously worry, concerns grew. A couple people, I put their subscription on pause because they were either furloughed. So I still provided help. I was there to guide them. Most everyone came back on in May, about 2 months later. So, in terms of revenue, the business has been steady this entire year. And in fact, I'm actually up on the year. So it's been a really good year for me.
Wow. Any SOS conversations that you've had to field from your clients? I would imagine with 85 that 15 of them would need some PR time.
No, there wasn't. Maybe I dealt with one panic client when the market was taking a sharp turn down. But a lot of my clients, one was, I really harped on building the emergency fund and building that cash reserve. It's kind of a priority of mine when I meet with clients. So the majority of them had that cushion set up. And then in terms of investments, we started, I guess I got lucky, but started last of November, we started to de-risk a little bit from just overall, just based on the market movement. So we had already de-risked, we built up a cash portfolio, we had extra cash on the side. And so for almost 80% of my clients, they viewed it, I've educated my clients about what to do during these market downturns, not to freak out. And so when we had that market downturn, we were actually buying into the market, dollar cost averaging, a little bit higher than we needed. And that's also one of the benefits of the app, is that there is a market tied component that does, depending on the individual's risk profile, that actually takes into account economic movement. And so if, let's say, a user has $1,000 per month going into their investments, and they're someone that's aggressive or classified as aggressive, the algorithm may shift money away from savings and say, hey, now's an opportunity to buy, up it from 1,000 to 1,200. So I kind of had these automated processes in place that really help navigate that chaos.
Wow. Incredible. You mentioned compliance kind of being its own beast.
Yeah.
Talk to us about, as a solopreneur, how you've handled the responsibility and pressure and accountability of making sure your firm is compliant.
Yeah. So that's an area that I continually, it's one that I probably put on the back burner, but I always have to, all right, once a month, I got to clamp down. I got to do this for at least an hour, and, an hour or two, review these necessary documents. So I work with Chris at Beach Street Legal. Actually, the only reason I met him was because of, I think he aired an episode with Kites. And so working with Chris has been amazing, really. He structures it for me. I pay him a monthly fee, and I'm like, you tell me what I need to focus on this month. So kind of like what I do with my clients, he does that for me, and it works perfect. So it makes my life a lot easier in terms of, all right, these are the tasks I need to handle. Let's knock these out.
Awesome. Are you following any leaders in the industry where you feel like you're trying to build a firm like theirs, or was there anyone kind of, as you started this, that you were really admiring in terms of the efficiency and the practice itself?
I wouldn't say it was like an individual. It was probably more kind of, 2016 was kind of that movement of robo-advisors kind of coming to the forefront, and how they were becoming more efficient, trying to find ways to provide these services to the masses. And so it was really more the movement than it was an actual individual.
Wonderful. Being a dad, there's so many members who are parents and are literally becoming parents as they open their firm. Going out and opening your own firm is not something everyone feels like they're ready to do. I'm interested in some of the conversations maybe you and your partner had over the years in preparation for this, in terms of how, if you're going to be at home, how do you take care of the kids, so forth and so forth.
Right. So obviously when I started at the firm, my wife was extremely supportive and saying, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it now since we're moving. But we also came to the agreement, obviously I'm going to be working from home. So when I first started, I was Mr. Mom. I handled the kids' routine every morning, pretty much every evening while she worked. She came home. I tried to have dinner ready. And then during that day, while the kids were at daycare or school, I'd obviously be working on the firm, trying to, create those foundations. So obviously, that was it was tough on me, it was tough on her, but it was something that we kind of both agreed. We both had that, we were both ready to do this. And about 6 months in is when finally, the revenue started to generate, where now it felt a lot better. There was money. I was contributing to the family, so I felt better. But yeah, it's being a parent obviously adds another level of complexity to this entire thing.
Do you participate in any study groups or any experiences with other advisors to bounce ideas off of or anything like that?
No, not right now. Obviously with the firm, I've got kind of that on autopilot that right now, and then I'm focusing on the startup, and then trying to be a dad. So there's things obviously, like when it comes to time management, you're going to have to make sacrifices. Like I said, I try to do the personal development in the mornings, where I have that 30-minute of quiet time where I can learn something new. So I try to always find something I can learn, whether it's personal development, whether it's a new topic, a new strategy that's available in the market. And I use that time early in the morning to do that.
That's really cool. And I give you a lot of credit for that, because I would say that of the people that get the short end of the stick as folks start businesses is often the person starting the business, and they do not build in time for the personal development. I'm interested in why you kind of took that route and what drew you to knowing that starting your morning that way is important to you, and what you would say to other advisors who may not have carved out time like that.
Yeah. So the biggest thing was obviously with kids, you kind of, your kids wake you up, like, especially they're young. I've got a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old boy. So by 6:30, they're up and about. So they kind of jump started your day. And so I realized that, look, I'm spending my morning dealing with them. Then I'm rushed back home, trying to get, in a groove for work, go through that. Then lunchtime hits. Then you're trying to, same thing. You work for about 2-3 more hours, and then it's time to go pick up the kids, activities, dinner, put them to bed. And then obviously I had West Coast clients. So most of my evenings were actually structured for client meetings from like 8 to 11 at night. So my day was really broken up. And I needed some time just for myself. And I came across a book, and it was called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And he just talked about, look, just dedicate, essentially the theory is that if you just dedicate 1 hour of your time, and you can structure that 1 hour however you want. And so I use it for, exercise, meditation, affirmation, visualization, reading, and then you're supposed to do scribing, which I'm terrible at journaling, so I skip that. But I do 5 of the 6 components. And then what I realized was I just need to wake up earlier. And so creating that routine, and just where there's no distraction, like no one's going to call me at 5 a.m. There isn't going to be an email that's going to ping me, tell me that it's an emergency. So from that time frame, being able to focus on myself, no distractions, I kind of had a jump start on the day already. And then then I'm the one waking the kids up at 6:30 now, flip the tables on them. And then when I get back to the office, I'm kind of already in a groove, ready to go. The schedule's planned out. So that was probably the biggest, most significant adjustment I made that really helped schedule, or prepare myself for the days, really.
Yeah. What would you say was the hardest part about all this over the past 4 years?
Yeah, there's uncertainty, right? I mean, when you make that shift, you make that jump, there's definitely uncertainty. But I know that I've always been taught that if you grind and you work hard, that things usually pay off. And so, 6 months of grinding finally came to paying off, which has led us to where we are now. And then that's when the fun is, right? When you realize that there's validation for your model, and you're having success with it, then all of a sudden it doesn't feel like you're really working every day. I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing. I'm okay with coming into the office. I'm okay taking a call outside the office if I need to. So yeah, loving what you're doing, making sure you work with the people you love, right? So I love all my clients. We have a good relationship. And I think that makes it a lot easier, right? There's not that one client that I sit there and I'm like, oh, he's calling or she's calling. Like, what am I going to do here? So being picky about who you work with, I think also helps. Yeah, that's about it.
I love that. I think that so many of our advisors can say that too, that they really love their work. And it's a personal goal of mine that I'm still so habituated Sunday night into being stressed for Monday. And that's something from my previous job. And now, as I love my work so much here, my goal is really to have work kind of be just part of life, that it isn't this like necessarily I'm turning it on. I have to be a certain way and my whole world changes because of it. But I want it to be this natural flow where I go in and out of my work and that it's part of my life. And I felt like I've reached that. Is that kind of where you're going with this, that you love it and it doesn't feel like work?
Correct. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And it kind of brings back kind of that meditation philosophy that, That's something that it takes time to get used to and master, and having your thoughts in and out of your head, and being able to recognize them and move on from them. And it's kind of that same thing, like being able to go to work, handle what needs to be done, and do so, and have fun with it. And so that's been the nice connection, just being able to go in. It really doesn't feel like work. I mean, when it comes down to it, I love, I come into my office. The one thing I will say is it might be a little lonely at times because there's no one around me. But being able, I like to be around people. So being able to have conversations with people is nice. And so, yeah.
A lot of our listeners haven't yet made the jump into starting their own firm, and some of them may, and some of them may not. And I'm wondering, for someone like you, what piece of advice do you have to advisors who are considering breaking out on their own?
Yeah. So about a year after kind of like establishing my firm, I discovered a quote by Walt Whitman, be curious, not judgmental. And it's really something that was rather powerful. And it's something that now I kind of apply to my everyday work. And the beauty of it is that it just, you've got to resort to asking questions. So making that transition from where you currently are to potentially going on your own, ask questions, be curious. And at the same time, the non-judgmental part, like don't just dismiss something because it looks or feels different. And these scenarios can apply to everything. Like let's look at it from a potential client. Just because they may look different or they may not have the assets, right? Like kind of the target market that I go after, they may not have those assets. So they may get dismissed a lot. And sometimes just being able to ask those questions, you can uncover things that, on the surface just wasn't there. So it's something that's really powerful that I try to live by. And I think it's something that, could really help a lot of people.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's definitely tied into the meditation part too. The whole practice is to be curious and not judgmental. Thank you so much, Pierre. I'm wondering, just kind of from your perspective, where do you think this industry is heading, given the changes that we've watched over the past several years, the direction maybe that you're sensing in it? If you had a crystal ball, where is financial planning heading?
Yeah, so I think there's going to be an interesting shift in the industry from a financial advisor perspective. I think we're already starting to see it develop. Obviously, technology and automation are going to start to replace some of our basic planning, right? So like the budgeting, the ability to save, the ability to invest. I think technology is going to come in. I think where the industry is going to shift in terms of financial advisors, I think we're going to become more coach-like, being able to have these conversations with clients, act like as a psychologist, and really dissect the situation. At the end of the day, people still need a human interaction. While automation is going to be there to make it a lot easier, they're still going to want someone to talk to, someone to bounce ideas off of. And I just think that that's where we're going to be positioned more. And then obviously that kind of encompasses the fact that, additional more higher end strategies as well will be needed. I think the most common stuff will be overtaken by technology, but then the more structured, more complicated strategies will need an advisor.
Awesome. Pierre, it's been a total joy to chat with you and learn more about how you run this practice of yours. And just talking with you, I can sense your energy and your drive around all this, and how quick you must be in terms of being able to pivot and make good decisions about what your clients need and how to do things. You've really built an impressive firm. Thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes, and finally, to find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You are not alone, and you are not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm, and that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344. and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.